Hello, welcome to a Informatica video tutorial. In this video, we are going to talk about some tips and considerations that you have to keep in mind when you create schedules and when you delete schedules. My name is Fernando Guerrero. I am a cloud solution specialist and I will guide you through this video. So in this video, we're going to talk about considerations that you need to keep in mind when you create a schedule. We are going to talk about why it's important to write a description when you create a schedule. Then I will do a demo on how to create and delete a schedule. And at the end, I will give you some links to Informatica documentation. So the first thing that you have to keep in mind is that Informatica offers a scheduler, and here you can specify when the schedule will start running. You also can specify how frequent the schedule is going to be running, for example, every day, every hour, every week. But also, it's very important that you keep in mind that there is a small offset. For example, if you specify that your schedule is going to run at noon, the mapping task or task flow that you scheduled is not going to run exactly at noon. Maybe there is going to be a 10 seconds offset, so it will start running at 12 with 10 seconds. If you want to figure it out what is the offset for your schedule, then you go to the schedule offset in your organization properties. Another thing that is very important is you have to remember to write a description when you create a schedule. This field is not mandatory when you create a schedule. The only field that is mandatory is the schedule name, but the description is extremely important because later when you are using the Informatica REST API services, if you want to get the list of schedules that you have active in your organization, or if you want to delete a schedule, the information that you write in the description is going to help you to link the schedule with which mapping task or which task flow that the schedule belongs. You are not going to find any other field that can tell you the relationship between schedule and mapping task or task flow. So that's why it's really critical that you use the description field. And in the following demo, I am going to show you why this field is really important. You will see how you use this field when you create and when you delete a schedule. Okay, so now we are going to see which considerations you have to remember when creating schedules, because this is going to impact how easy, how hard it's going to be to delete those schedules in the future, because sometimes you don't even know which mapping task or task flow is related to a schedule. So here we can see that we have one mapping task. Okay, let's go into edit. So you can edit or you can create a new mapping task, and you have one step where actually it's asking you if you want to create a schedule to run this mapping task. So keep in mind, you are able to do this every time that you edit your mapping and when you create new mappings. So for this one, it's going to say, yes, we want to run this task on a schedule, and we are going to create a new one. It's going to call it test schedule. Here you have a field. It's not mandatory, but it is very important that you write some information in the description field. In the future, when you want to delete a schedule, it's going to tell you that you cannot delete it if there is a mapping task that is running under this schedule. If you don't specify here, the message that you are going to get is it's going to tell you, oh, you cannot delete this schedule because it's in use, but you don't know who is using this schedule. So I will always recommend you to, here in the description, write the name of the mapping task that is using this schedule, so you know the relationship between a schedule and mapping task. So for this one, we have empty underscore Coupa underscore to snowflake. That's the name of my mapping task related with this one. Yeah, I want to run this one. I want to run it daily, and I want to run it for a specific number of days. Okay, so now I create the schedule. Now, if you, in the future you want to know which schedules you have active in your organization, you will need to use the Informatica REST API. There are several requests that you can send to get the information of specific schedules, or you can get it for all the schedules in your organization, and you can delete those schedules. So right now, let's going to see that example. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to also use the API call to log in. And when you log in, and the response that you get from the login is the IC session ID. Copy that session ID and come here to the schedule. There is one API call, call it schedule, and you will see this information in the reference section. So we have here the API call, and we have the headers, and in the headers, one of them has to be the IC session ID. So just make sure to specify this one. So here, when you call this way, it's going to give you the list of all the schedules that you have active in your organization. If you want more details about how to get specific schedules, you can look at the documentation. There are more examples. Right now, I am going to pull all the schedules in one organization. So here we got different schedules, and I'm just going to see the last one. So the last one, it tells you this is the name, test schedule, remember? And here we have a description field. And I told you this is really important, because if you don't specify the description, when you come here to the response about information, the schedule, you see you don't have anything else that tells you to which mapping task this schedule is related. Now, let's gonna copy the ID, because when you want to delete the schedule, you need the schedule ID. So let's go to copy that one. In the delete schedule API call, you will also need your IC session ID. You remember to paste it in the header section. And then here in the URL, you have the API call URL, and then at the end, you need to specify the schedule ID. So remember, right now that schedule is attached to one mapping task. So if we try to delete, it's going to tell us that it's not possible, because the schedule is being used by this mapping task. So you have to update the mapping task or delete in order to delete this. Now, if you don't remember when we created the schedule, we write the name of the mapping task in the description. If we have not done that, right now we will not have a way to know to which mapping task this schedule is related. So that will make us really hard to delete this schedule, because how are we going to find out which mapping task is related to that one? So that's why it's very important that you fill out that information when you create your schedule. So now let's go back to our mapping. So let's going to try to edit the mapping again, and this time you can delete the entire mapping task if you want. Remember, you can edit or delete it. But it's going to come to a schedule, and here the only thing that you have to do is like change that you don't want to run this mapping task on a schedule. That's all. So you come back again to your delete API request. You are going to run it again, and this time it should be successful because we already removed that schedule from that mapping task. If everything is successful, we are going to get a status of 200. Okay, so let me run it. So we don't see anybody, but the status is 200. Okay. So yep, just a consideration. Remember to always write a description when you create your schedules, because thanks to that description, you will be able to know to which mapping task the schedule is related. And you will have the documentation about how you can use these APIs. This was just one example, but there are different ways to use it. So yeah, check the documentation, please. If you want to learn more about the Informatica scheduler or about the Informatica REST API calls to delete or request information about the schedule, please visit the following documentation. You will find more information or in more detail about these topics. If you have any feedback that you would like to send us, please write an email to supportvideos@informatica.com. Thank you for your interest at Informatica Cloud Solution.